Hi, this is Frankie for the Pixel Slayers, and today I want to basically give a brief rundown on the upcoming next generation of consoles coming from Microsoft and Sony. For the sake of simplicity, I will refer to the next Xbox in this video as the next box, and the PS5 will be the PS5, of course. Before we get into the next consoles, let's just do a quick rundown on the generation we are still in. Both the Xbox One and PS4 use x86 architecture, a first since the original Xbox. The beauty of this is that it makes future backwards compatibility very simple. These consoles are pretty much just like your home PCs running a lockdown OS, which is an operating system, and using custom compact hardware. This was the first time we saw mid-generation refreshes, which was easy to implement because of this. Both consoles were very familiar with each other, with the main difference being that the PS4 used faster memory and had a slightly higher clock speed, but overall the original units were using the same AMD custom APU technology. The systems had a good amount of RAM for the time, but the APU was kind of weak from the get-go, and a major reason the refresh was thought up in mid-gen. Basically, Sony and Microsoft didn't believe 4K televisions would take off as quickly as they did, and they needed a solution. So here we are on the dawn of the next generation, and the hype train is roaring, or chewing along if you prefer to say. What we know at this moment is that both the next box and PS5 will be using Zen 2 architecture, and they will have an SSD for the system OS and crucial game files, which will speed things up. A common theme among rumors is that the CPU portion will have 8 cores, and the GPU portion will be capable of ray tracing and native 4K gameplay. It sounds great at first glance, but I want to take a skeptical look past the talking points and hype for a moment. First, unlike many other YouTubers and analysts, I think it's more than possible for these consoles to launch at or around $499. Sure, they may be $599, but I kinda doubt it, since that's a hard sell for a machine that only plays games. When it comes to the general casual audience, they rely on that low price point to achieve a large user base. And when I mean low price point, I mean for a console, for what you're getting. Obviously, $499 is a lot of money. They will probably lose about $200 a console, and that's not really unheard of at launch. So this will likely be a $700 to $800 machine. And you could basically build a PC similar using AMD technology for about that price. Last-gen consoles used mobile-based AMD CPUs, and I believe the same will be the case for the next generation. The CPU will be a lower-clocked mobile version of its current desktop Ryzen CPU, which would probably bench somewhere near a first-gen Ryzen 1700. It will be a heck of a lot more efficient, however, using the new 7nm process. I doubt there will be any hyper-threading, most likely 8 cores and 8 threads is what you get. For gaming in 4K, this is more than enough for a CPU, but what about the GPU portion? First, we have this year's buzzword, ray tracing. It will do it. Not hardware, but software-based, similar to the way NVIDIA's 1660 series cards do, which means in theory, one day you may see a game do it, but don't hold your breath. I have a feeling Sony and Microsoft will push for this with their titles, but don't expect it to look as good as native hardware ray tracing that you see in NVIDIA's top-tier RTX cards, especially in 4K. Next, 4K gaming. This is not a big deal. Yes, it will do 4K gaming. Games developed and optimized properly for the systems will probably do most games close or at 60 frames per second, but as the generation continues on and games get bigger, you will see a struggle to move beyond 30 frames per second, just in time for a mid-gen refresh. Now, 8K support can't be done on AMD's last-gen video cards, so that's not unheard of. Of course, if you read between the lines, Microsoft and Sony never did say that they would game in 8K, only that it will support 8K, as far as displays. So what will this GPU look like? Well, it's going to be mobile-based, as console GPUs are. The latest and greatest mobile GPU from AMD is the RX 5500. This card benches close to the base model 1660, which supports software ray tracing, supports 8K displays, and can game in 4K 30 frames per second on many games. Optimized for new consoles, you can see that number achieving 60 frames per second easily. And None of AMD's cards currently support ray tracing at the moment, but I believe AMD will be enabling software ray tracing very soon in the driver update, and the RX 5500 will be one of those cards that receives this update. Of course, it may be a newer mobile GPU that has yet to be released, so it may be a bit faster, but given how far in development these new consoles are, and the fact that we are 6 months or less away from manufacturing, I think the chances are slim that it will be something completely new and unseen. Keep in mind that while these consoles are x86, they are optimized for gaming, so while the specs may seem lower than on a normal PC, they will perform better on the next-gen consoles. One example of optimization is the next-gen console's use of SSD technology. I know this isn't a huge deal as Sony is making it out to be, but with a super fast SSD optimized for the system that can catch game files as needed, you can in theory achieve faster data speeds than you could on a regular PC. Of course, you are limited to whatever the hardware that's in these consoles, but optimization will make the hardware seem and perform more than it really is in tried and true home console fashion. So to break it down again simpler, my informed prediction is this: next box and PS5 will be using the already announced 8-core 7nm mobile Ryzen-based CPU with performance similar to a 2017 Ryzen 7 1700 desktop CPU, minus the 8 threads. You're just going to have 8 cores and 8 threads, I believe. Having 16 threads on a laptop-based CPU, I don't think so. They will be using the newly announced RX 5500 mobile GPU with performance comparable to a 2018 RX 590 desktop GPU. I believe they will be using 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, perhaps more, but it really wouldn't be necessary given the optimization. The SSD would be comparable to the fastest M.2 variants on the market, mated to a larger 1 or 2 terabyte basic hard drive. If you build a PC using similar specs where possible, perhaps substituting the shared 16 gigabyte memory for 8 gigabyte DDR4, since the RX 590 has 8 gigabytes of GDDR5, you will come away with a $600 to $700 build. This is consumer pricing, not wholesale bulk pricing, of course, so it's even cheaper for Sony Microsoft. When you factor in the R&D, however, it goes back up to around $700 to $800. So a $499 to $599 price is not unimaginable, given them taking a loss on hardware in the past. Now, I just want to make it clear, I am not an engineer. I am simply an enthusiast using already announced core specs and comparing benchmarks with the highest end mobile AMD GPU with the desktop class GPUs and seeing where they match up. I am using leaked and rumored 7nm Zen 2 mobile chip specs and lining that information up with benchmarks from AMD's desktop class CPUs and seeing where they line up. This is what will be and is available, and with consoles already announced to be using this Zen 2 architecture, and also counting the historic patterns regarding hardware development time and system specs at launch, I made my best educated guess. Let me make it clear again that this does not account for console optimizations, which I believe will make these seemingly underwhelming to some specs really muscle up and stand with stronger and more powerful desktop gaming PCs within reason. Now let me get into the games. I believe your current gen titles will continue to scale up on next gen hardware like they do on the PS4 Pro and One X. Backwards compatibility with these consoles is obvious and a given. I wouldn't be surprised if some next generation games continue to run on previous gen hardware, scaled down, for a limited amount of time at least. I believe Microsoft will continue their backwards compatibility program with their legacy systems, as it benefits them to have more titles to offer on their platform, which is becoming more of a service. Sony will continue to rely strictly on their hardware for the time being, which is why I believe that out of the two similar consoles, the PS5 will have the edge when it comes to performance, but probably not by much. Now, as a PC gamer running current and modern hardware using Xbox Game Pass, and the multitude of game services available to me, I feel like I already have the next box. It would have to take quite the amount of exclusives to get me to buy Microsoft's next machine. I think I will simply subscribe to the Game Pass like I'm doing now, using my PC, and I believe this is something Microsoft is completely okay with. That being said, given Sony's exclusive titles, I will be purchasing a PS5 and probably at launch too, as my PS4 Basic is getting long in the tooth. Plus, with backwards compatibility, I could sell it and keep my library. It will most likely be the first generation in a while where I don't own all three consoles, but like I said, my PC running Game Pass feels like I already have the Xbox. I'm sure Nintendo will be selling me a Switch Pro at launch to keep their performance to scale ratio going with the PS5 and Xbox too, but that's a whole other topic and a video for another day. With every new generation comes a wave of excitement, but keep your expectations realistic and don't buy into all the hype. These are game consoles after all, and either way, they will look better than the last generation and expand the technical horizon and gameplay possibilities to the masses, which is a beautiful console-like thing. Thanks for watching.